Hello, and welcome back. Thank you for joining us today for the Florida Association of Black Chambers of Commerce's Powering Florida's Black-Owned Businesses Educational Programming webinar. That was a tongue twister. And today we're talking about unlocking the potential, scaling Black-owned businesses for success. And before we start, we want to thank our sponsor, Florida Power and Light, their Be Powerful educational series, which of course is unlocking hidden potential in Black businesses. And if you have any questions today during our webinar, drop them wherever you're seeing this, whether it's on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, or X, or here live on StreamYard. We'll get those questions in on the show, and our expert will answer those. Today, our expert is Howard Bush. He's the executive managing director with Act 3 Consulting. Welcome, Howard.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. It's great to be on.
Thank you for joining us. So, to begin, let's start with a little bit of your background and experience in breathing life into businesses across the United States.
Sure, be glad to. Started my career out of grad school as a commercial lender in the middle market space. So these were companies between 3 million in sales going all the way up to a billion in sales. And some of the things that I did was help them re-engineer their business or help them drive and grow through capital attainment or helping them divest or even do merger and acquisitions. And over the years, I've built on that experience by building some businesses in corporate America, as well as running a startup with my son on my own.
So, how did you matriculate into this field? Was this something that you always knew that you would be doing?
Great question. When I went to Florida A&M University. When I was in the business school, I had a propensity to always get involved with the professors, and a lot of them had their own businesses or they were helping drive e-commerce within the Black community. And I would just get involved and help them with consulting with the small businesses. And I found that I had a knack for it. And I would say a God-given gift to be able to have empathy and take where somebody is and helping them get to where they want to go. So that being able to lay out a plan to drive a growth in the company is something I've always been very interested in, a passion for, and found that I was good at it.
So, within these decades of experience that you have, what were some of the practical steps or are practical steps that businesses can take to pave their way in a way to obtain it? Because many times people see success and they understand it from their vantage point as one way, but achieving success is rooted with consistency and other practical things. Can you just start our conversation off on how a successful business looks, and then after that, let's delve into how you can take that model and scale it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think one of the first things is like what I call really tight planning. Planning the type of work you do. What business are you in? There's so many different business models. And I'm going to talk from a perspective of somebody who may have a startup, but also someone who may already have an ongoing business that they've been in it for 5, 6, 7 years, or even 20 years. The planning process really has to start with understanding the overall objectives. What are you trying to achieve? What portion of the market are you going after, and how well do you know that market? And as you look at the different goals that you'd have to implement, they could be financial goals, they could be market share type of goals, they can be goals to help drive a change in a certain industry, become a leader in a thought leader within a certain industry and get paid for it. Any of those type of goals would have to be set, and you need to put metrics against them. Just setting a goal saying I want to be, the biggest company in this particular industry, it is not going to work if you can't measure where you're going and how you're going to get there. And then being able to say who's my competition or where are the things that are going to hinder my ability to grow, and what are those metrics and what are they looking at. So I think that planning part starts with driving objectives and goals, being very specific, and then what metrics do you have to lead? That's where I would start as part of the multi-phase process you have to go through.
It is multi-phase. When you speak to goals and metrics, I know a lot of business owners think that money is the answer for whether or not they've reached their goals and whether or not they are able to say, I am successful because of this dollar amount that you've been able to pull in. What do you say to that?
I say, don't just look at the top line. You might have multi-million dollars that you've pulled in, or if you're just starting out, you might have pulled in 20,000. But it's not as much about the revenue. That's important, but it's how you use and leverage that revenue is the key. It's the what I call doing the double click or finishing the sentence. So I achieved this amount in revenue. So what? What are you doing with that revenue, and how much are you keeping it at the end of the day? There's a whole what I call captive cash flow that can happen in the business where you could pull in revenue, but if your expenses are too high based on your business model, or if the investments that you've made, like equipment or inventory, and you purchase that high in the market and you can't sell it for what you purchased for, now you're upside down. The amount of money that you brought in revenue doesn't matter anymore, because now you don't have extra money at the end to be able to reinvest and to grow or to diversify and those kind of things. So that's the first thing I would say is it's not just about the revenue, it's how you manage the dollars that you have come in, which are your currency for growth.
So that's a very good point for this discussion. If you do have X amount of dollars coming in, what percentage would you say? Because you said this, but how much are you holding on to versus how much
Mm-hmm.
are you putting out? What would be a healthy percentage, or how would they be able to evaluate that?
That's a great question, and it really depends on the type of business, honestly, and where they are in their maturity life cycle. It's called retained earnings, and it lands on your balance sheet. Just as a brief overview, the balance sheet is that statement that shows you in a point in time where you are: cash, your accounts receivable, liabilities, your owner's equity. It shows you the health at a point in time of your business. And retained earnings is the money that you're able to keep after you make that revenue and you've paid your expenses. Allows you to either retain in the business or use it to pay your stakeholders or yourself, or do other things with it. That percentage is going to depend on your goals. And so you could retain 30% of your earnings and put that back into the business. But is that enough to maintain what I would call the cyclicality or seasonality of your business? Because we're going to have ups and downs. All businesses do. And do you have enough of those retained earnings to weather the storm when things may be a little thin when it comes to the revenue that comes up? I've seen companies retain 5%. I've seen companies retain 50%. I've had clients who they make 50% profit and their businesses are really efficient, not a whole lot of overhead, and they keep a lot of what they're making. And so it all depends on what those goals are. You're going to hear me say goals a lot during this talk.
I know you, sir. I know you. That's why I was so adamant about trying to book you. I know how you can speak life into companies, and I know that our audience really needs your wisdom. So let's just say for this next question, we're speaking on behalf of a company who has the identified goals, the metrics, they are there, and they are ready to scale their business to what they're thinking is the next level.
Mm-hmm.
What would scaling be in that in their idea of potentially trying to scale their business?
Mm-hmm.
What does that consist of?
Okay, I love that. what comes to mind immediately is fuel. When you're an entrepreneur and you're trying to grow your business, you're trying to scale beyond where you are. A lot of companies are at what I call a plateau in their revenue, maybe plateau in their knowledge of what's next and new, any of those type of things. And you have to be a firewoman or a fireman. You have to be someone who's willing to put not a fire out, but actually put gasoline on the fire. And that gasoline can really be one of 3 or 4 things. It could be that you have a new product innovation, and that product innovation is going to help you scale, because now there's a market that needs that product, that there's no real competition. And now you got to be able to manufacture it, market it. You have to have the people to distribute it. You have the people to do the customer service when things aren't made particularly not right with the product, whatever that, whatever those things are. That scaling means you got to be ready. And being ready is all about, do you have the people, process, and technology in place to scale? So if you're trying to do 2x or 5x growth, that growth is going to eat up cash. So it's just like strategy, any type of business where you're trying to extrapolate and exponentially grow, it's going to eat cash up. So you're either going to have to borrow to do it, you got to take your retained earnings to do it, or bring in a partner. We've had conversations in the past around, do you partner when you want to grow? Do you want to actually have do your own thing? Are there things that you may want to sell off in order to scale? A lot of times you can carry baggage in your business that you don't even realize you have, and you need to get rid of that baggage so that you can focus on the core businesses that are going to make you go forward.
That was interesting because our conversation went back to money. It did. It went back to money. And so you have this ability to launch a new line, create a new revenue stream, but you need capital in order to scale or grow, to launch this new revenue stream.
Correct.
Is there another way that you can scale the business without looking at capital?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. And this is where you have to get creative. It's a bartering. I call it a bartering type of situation, where there may be another company that has the pathway to the customers, or they might have the technology or that know-how that you need, but you may have some things that they need to go. So there might be a partnership, a bartering partnership, where you're not putting any real cash on the table, but you're pooling your resources together to be able to attack a certain market or a certain growth pattern. And that can take a lot of different forms. You definitely want an attorney on both sides, making sure you've got the right contracts in place, that it's not just handshake, because one is, how do you share the benefits that are going to come out of that? And that's going to be either revenue, market recognition, brand. Your brand is an intangible asset. It's a goodwill, and that brand is worth money. And so when you're trying to grow something, that brand may take you without having to spend money, because somebody may be willing to put money into what you're doing as an investor, as opposed to needing to go out and get money. So it all depends on the situation, but I think the theme in this side of the conversation is, you got to put yourself out there. Unless you just get rolling that where people are coming to you all the time, which that could be true.
So communicate, put yourself out there, allow for the vision that you have to be recognized, and there could be a potential bartering situation. So what I'm hearing from you say also is that you have to be very creative and transparent in trying to see how partnership could lead to exponential growth and scale.
Absolutely. And I think when you said partnership, I thought about trust. And there's a mathematical equation to trust. So follow me on this. Trust equals And there's a numerator and a denominator. In the numerator is reliability, credibility, and relationship. Those three things added together are your numerator. The denominator is self-interest or selfishness or self-centeredness. And as we know in algebra, if your bottom denominator gets bigger, then your total equation is going to be smaller. So to build trust, you have to reduce in self-interest and really focus on, are you reliable in your business? Do you deliver when you say you're going to deliver? Do you have the credibility, what I call street cred? Do you have the credibility to demand a certain price for your services versus a competitor? In relationship, which can be also substituted with intimacy, that intimacy that you have with your clients or with your partners, that relationship that goes beyond what I call those seasons of challenge that give you grace in the midst of when there's dark storms in your business, when things aren't going that well, when you've got a co-conspirator who's working with you, who's willing to be with you up and down, someone who can be an accomplice in a positive way, who is helping you in your business. I'm going down the route of you're not alone. You should not operate alone. You always need other people surrounding you to help drive that business.
So that sounds like an advantage.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Having trust and building that trust is a huge advantage, because then you get grace when things aren't perfect. And that's the important part.
Mm-hmm. What are some other advantages to scaling?
Well, I would say wealth creation. So let's not even, skip over that. Generational wealth, that's something that I've been focused on a lot over the past several years. And, what wealth creation is a responsibility that takes a lot of discipline. And it's really about making choices, the kind of choices that allow you to exponentially grow your wealth as opposed to shrink your wealth. So I'll give an example. I was watching a documentary on someone who was a financial coach. And she said, and it was a Black woman, she said, when you're spending on things, spend things on that you love or that you need. Stop spending things that you want or that you like. And so think about your business and think about the things that you love about your business and the things that you really excel in, that you have those natural gifts in, or that company, the talent that you have around you has a core competency that's second to none. When you start dabbling in things that you may want to do or things that you like to do, is your commitment there? Is the commitment enough for you to be able to weather the growth pains that happen? But when you love something, or when you feel like you need it, that commitment tends to be there and a lot stronger. And I've experienced that in a startup that I helped with my son. It was an app for tailgating at football games. It could be at any kind of sport event. And he was the CEO. And there were things that he loved about the business, and there are things that he just wanted to do. And that want wasn't really aligned with the skill set of myself nor him. And so when you're driving something that you love, you'll take the time to really get to learn it and grow it, and bring the right people in. And so that's a lesson that I found to be profound in my life, and it's changed my personal financial life as well as the coaching that I do with minority Black companies.
That's very profound, because there is something to be said when you are doing work that someone else may consider work, but when you're working in what you love,
Mm-hmm.
you can spend countless hours at it being successful versus being driven by the money that you're going to make from it.
Correct.
So while we're talking about money, and I said money was a metric, what really are the metrics to understand whether or not you are driving this business towards the next level or scaling that is deemed as being a success?
Sure. I call it, so it would be cash flow. Cash flow is a metric that allows you to see velocity of your spend, inflows and outflows, as well as the direction of your outflows, inflows. So let's just say, where does your cash come from and where does it go? And so things like your sales or interest income or dividends received, anything like that would be inflows. A sale of a property or sale of equipment. Outflows are things like payments to suppliers, employees for payroll, or your interest or taxes. It could be the payments that you're making to acquire property or equipment. But then you could issue stock in your company or ownership in your company. You could take out loans, and those are influxes of cash. And then there's somewhere you could sell investments, things that you've done, or if you've got other parts of your business that you can sell. All those inflows and outflows, it's a continuum over a period of time. And over that time, you can see on a monthly basis, am I in the positive or in the negative in my cash flow? And where are my challenges? For instance, accounts receivable. As you know, in your business, when customers, they may sometimes pay you a little longer than you'd like. You know, maybe it's not every 30 days. Maybe it's 60 days. Maybe it's net, 30, 60, 90. It could be something where you get paid when it's done, or you get a little bit up front to get you started and then you pay. So all those things have a huge impact on how you scale your business. And there are areas in your business that are what I call harbor captive cash flow. Captive cash flow are those areas that, you have to really open the door, open that closet, take a really good look to see, is that expense really necessary? And it takes a lot of discipline to do that because, we're all busy. Entrepreneurs are busy. And if you don't have a system, a disciplined system to be able to evaluate, is this the right expense for the right pursuit? It makes all the difference. Like, for instance, if you're going to be in an Indy 500 car race, are you going to go out and you're going to buy a little small VW that has a 4-cylinder and only goes as high as 100 miles an hour? No. You want to get something that's actually going to handle the curves and the acceleration and win the race. And so you have to match your spending and your expenses with the outcome that you're looking for. So I always say, start with the outcome, the end in mind, and let the financing or how you spend the money dictate based on what you're trying to. So you're not going to buy a building with a short-term credit card that's going to have, X amount of interest rate. You're going to finance it with a longer-term interest rate that gives you more flexibility to have your cash to be used for other things. I'll stop there and see if that's resonating.
No, that's excellent. I'm going to let you just keep talking because all you're going to do is just spit wisdom the entire time. In your experience, can you describe some of the key challenges to growing a business?
I'm going to start with people because, we got our folks who we work with, who we hire, who we partner with, and having the right talent at the right time, at the right price is really important. I can't stress that enough because I was trained as a enterprise architect, and what an enterprise architect does, and I was trained at Microsoft when I worked there for 8 years. And what an enterprise architect does is they focus on how to connect the strategy with the implementation by leveraging people, process, and technology. And the people, notice I said it first, are the ones that provide a lot of that fuel for scaling a business. Because one, they may have the knowledge of what it takes to get things done. They may have the network to be able to expand the business and scale. And they may have the energy and effort and excitement that you need, because it does take energy and excitement to run a business. And you want people who are excited about what you're doing. And they have to be what I would say change agents. There's going to be a spectrum of people that you have, and there's a natural bell curve around change in people. And it's kind of a skewed bell curve. So it's really steep in the beginning and then tails out really long. And the people in the beginning of that change are your change agents. They'll go out, they'll run ahead of you. They'll survey the land, and they'll look around, making sure that they see what's coming. Then you've got the fast followers who are like, okay, I'll wait to see what they come back with. Oh yeah, okay, that's good. All right, I'll fall in line. Let's go. Then you have the fence dwellers, who are the ones in your business who are like, I'll see it when I believe it. I could be positive about it, but I'm not. But you know what? I'm just going to stay here where I am until I see something move. Those are the dangerous folks, because if you tap into who they are and you find out what motivates them, they could tip over into that fast follower group pretty quickly. If you don't pay them any attention or don't give them, opportunity to do the fast follower, now they're going to slide into what I call the naysayers, the people who are the negative ones, who don't believe in anything that the company's doing. All they feel like is they're in that self-interest part of the denominator. They are selfish. They're thinking about themselves and not about the company. They will eat you up. They will eat up your profit. They will eat up your customer relationships. And I always say, get rid of those folks as fast as you can, because they're your team. And this is a universal truth. Your team is only as good as the lowest denominator, the person who has the least amount of skill, the least amount of motivation, and the most negativity. And so you can judge your business on that, because you're only going to get as far as your people are. There's some exceptions to that, because there's some one sole proprietorship, one person type of businesses where it's just you're doing your thing, but now you've got multiple personalities, right? You've got this, you're struggling with what you see and perceive versus what the outside sees and perceives. So it's still relevant, but I would say talent and people, number one to scale. Full stop.
Okay. Now, I know that there's someone here who's joining us, and they sent this question in before the show.
Great.
They were interested in trying to determine what that next step looked like, meaning what was it that they were going to need to employ in order to take their business to the next level. I don't know if I said it right.
Yeah.
Or kind of identifying what that opportunity could be.
Okay. Did they give any more context on their situation at all?
Not anything that I can say. If they decide to drop a question down below, then I'll read it.
That's fair. That's
yeah.
fair. I'll try to take it. It's a little general, but I'll try to take it and see if this helps. Assessment. Do a company self-assessment. Maybe have a third party who is not emotionally tied to the business to do an objective assessment of the readiness of the scaling. And readiness can come in a lot of different ways. There are probably 5 areas. It would be your financial position. It would be your talent. It would be your processes in place. So like say you bring on 3x revenue and now you have 50 more customers. Do you have the processes in place to deal with the customers, manage their needs, understand where they need to go, handling when things aren't going well? What's your customer service? Do you have that in place? That kind of thing. So that's the third one. The fourth would be market knowledge and understanding. So do you really know either if it's a niche or if you're actually trying to recreate something that's already out there, or you're just piggybacking on a trend that's happening, whatever that is, how well do you know that market? And be really truthful about it. If you don't know much about it, then you do 2-3 things. Go and read, study up. Go and buy the person who knows it already. And that could be renting them through consultancy or actually bringing them on as a headcount on your team. And then the next thing would be really focused on fluidity. What identifying the threats that are going to be the barriers or the speed bumps for that scale. And if you can identify those and have some strategies around those, then you can say, you know what, is it worth it? Is it worth me putting more time and energy and expense in getting past that hurdle, getting past that plateau, if it's something that I feel like is attainable? Excuse me. And the last thing would be time frame. How fast are you trying to do it? You trying to do it in 3 months? You trying to do it in 10 years? I'm a big believer in long-term planning, even though we're in a really high change, fast technology-based, environment globally. You still need to have a long-term view that's way out, because that's your North Star. And then you just make tweaks as you go along. Oh, can't go that way. So now the star maybe moves this way a little bit. But if you don't go out that far, you'll just fall into anything. You'll just follow any small stuff that's happening, and it may not necessarily be where you need to go.
Right. That was good. You also mentioned, we keep going back to the money, but it is what it is. So with those financial statements, what is the first thing that you need to try to analyze?
Okay. I'd probably start with the use of money, source, the use of money, because use of money is something that you have a lot more control over. You may not have a lot of control over the source of money, like where to get the money to come in, revenue or borrow, that kind of thing, or invest. But the use of funds, I would scrutinize that a lot. And does it align with where you're going? I would then go to who owes you money and how fast is it coming in, and can you make it faster? Because they're calling accounts receivable turnover, turns on account receivable. And that accounts receivable ratio of how much you have, how fast it's coming in is going to be important, because the faster you can get money in, the faster you can use it for what you need to use it. If people are stringing you out, then it's tough for you to make decisions on where you want to go if you know that you don't quite have your hands on the money yet. And then I would look at cash flow. I would look at the cash flow, your ins and outflows. And do you have enough? At the end of the day, there's an equation that focuses on earnings before interest and taxes, called EBIT, earnings before interest and taxes. That gives you your core operation of what you're doing. And then you add depreciation, amortization, and taxes to it, and that gives you EBITDA, which is depreciation, amortization. That gives you a view of, now that I've had an operation and I've paid my taxes and I've paid my depreciation, now what I'll have left, and that's called free cash flow. Your free cash flow is what you need to be able to do the dreams that you want after you've paid all the things you have to do. So if you shrink the middle part, cost of goods sold, and the expenses that you have as supporting your business, allows you to free up more cash flow. Now you're cooking with gas, because now you can use that net profit, net earnings to be able to reinvest in your business or do other things that make you happy, that you love or that you need.
Howard, so smart. Okay. Let's think that this is over.
Okay.
There are businesses out there that may be looking to have some kind of book that can teach them a little more. Do you have any recommendations?
I do. I'll do two recommendations. The first one is called 0 to 1. And 0 to 1 is a book that's really about startups, to help them build for the future. And it's by Peter Thiel and Blake Masters. People may know Peter Thiel. He was the first outside investor of Facebook. He was the co-founder of PayPal. And what he does, he brings a different viewpoint on being an entrepreneur and he sees that there's stagnation in the progress using technology and that kind of thing. And he feels like there's a limit within Silicon Valley, and there's a limit on businesses based on their industry. But he feels like progress can be achieved in any industry. That, most important skill that a leader must master is learning to think for yourself. Mm. And so a lot of times there's this noise, all these shiny objects out here. This person's doing this and this person's successful over here, blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, God has given you a certain set of talents that are just innate to who you are. And you can listen to all the advice that you want. But one thing I learned from my son when we were doing the startup, and we got to a point where we had investors, we had angel investors, and we had to shut it down because it was right before the pandemic. But he learned an important lesson. There were things that I didn't agree with him on how he was going about the business, but he had an innate knowledge of this is where we need to go based on the research that I've done and the things that I know about this market. And I had to trust him. And you know what? He was right. And so you have to go with yourself, not just, where everybody else is going. The second book is by a Black woman that I know well, been in the organization. It's called IT Senior Management Forum. It's a Black organization for technology executives. And our whole goal is to get more Black executives into the C-suite and leadership positions within corporate America for technology. And her name is Shelley Archambault. And Shelley was one of the first women, Black and women CEOs within Silicon Valley. And she understands about ambition. Her book is called Unapologetically Ambitious: How to Take Risks, Break Barriers, and Create Successes on Your Own Terms. And she is sharp. And she sits on a public board of Verizon and brings her talents to that board and that company. And each chapter really follows through, the realities of how to take your professional goals, if about your business, you personally, and be very specific in understanding your feelings of inadequacy and learning to control how you build your career, your successful entrepreneurial career, your business, and your personal life. So definitely that's another one that I highly recommend.
I'm going to try to add that one to the chat too.
Okay.
Shelley, I just had to look her up really, really quick, but that sounds like an excellent read.
Mm-hmm. It is. It is. And she's been through some stuff in her life. And she's got grit, grace, and just a brilliant person. Admire her a ton.
Okay, I'm dropping that in this chat right now so that everybody can get that one. Shelley, and then the other one was by Peter. Mm-hmm. If you all have any questions, make sure you let us know. Drop them in your chat so that I can ask Howard here before our show wraps for today. Okay, we talked about books. What are some techniques or philosophies that might not be taught in business school that, they're intangible elements to growing a business? Do you have any?
Oh, that's a good question. The intangibles. Wow. Okay. So I'll go by the experience that I've seen with Black entrepreneurs who I feel are very successful, including you.
Oh,
and I try to pull those characteristics together to see what I call that magic sprinkle dust that they do to make things happen. And you're a great, I would say, an example of this. Steadfast in your convictions. I think one thing I learned about you, Jessica, is that when you are like, I know this is where we need to go, I feel like that's a warm blanket because I know that you're right. And you've proven that out in your business. And I would say, when you really know that you need to go, just go. Don't wait around to get permission. If people aren't getting on board, figure out how to get them on board, because at the end of the day, you know the direction that needs to happen. Feel confident in that. And you know what? If it for some reason doesn't work out down the road, there might have been other aspects to it. At the end of the day, that conviction is what creates followership. And people are looking for folks who know where they're going and want to know where they're going. And if they don't know where they're going, that they're tapping into the talent around them to figure it out. But I would say conviction on that ambition is one. The other intangible I would say is faith. I'm a man of faith. I don't always live up to that faith, but I can tell you one of the tangibles that I've been able to tap into, and I see a lot of successful entrepreneurs, is that they know it's bigger than them, and that there is a being out there who has their back. And at the end of the day, a lot of times your clients and your customers just want to feel comfortable that you got it, that you have control on it, and that if it's not right, you'll make it right. And so that level of integrity of a value system, I think integrity is number one. How much are you willing to bend to make it happen? And if you're bending in a way that creates a question on your character, a question on your integrity, I always say God don't like ugly. My mama said God don't like ugly. He has eyes all around. And just because you think you did something and you were slick, you didn't get away with it, because it's going to come back around. So I would say cut out the shortcuts, go for the long game, and do it the right way. Because at the end of the day, you got to be able to sleep, and people around you have to be able to sleep. So I would say that integrity with faith is probably one of the most important things to have that's intangible to scaling your business.
Excelente, excelente. I heard integrity. I heard intuition. You didn't say intuition, but
Yeah, you're
that
right.
is that knowing that you know that this is what
Mhm.
you need to do. I think a lot of business owners struggle with that because they just don't want to get it wrong.
Yeah.
But there has to be a fearlessness about your leadership, where if
Mhm.
you're not leading in that knowing, then your staff's gonna know. It's gonna seep into morale and in that culture. So it is also something that, as a leader, you have to really be intentional about honing in to your craft and just focusing on it. Okay, so let's see. Oh, we're almost out of town. Let's see. All right. Um, Foundation. Let's end the show talking about the foundation of the business and possibly venturing into creating some standard operating procedures
Mhm.
slash systems that can go into place. I know with our business, our scaling is about systems and creating these processes that are
Mhm.
continuous for lack of another failure, or if
Right.
this then what, all of
Mhm.
those different things. Can you speak to that, please?
Yeah, I think what you're talking about is repeatability. Can you repeat enough of the processes in a consistent, standardized way that yields the outcomes that you want? And one thing about systems, they'll give you an outcome. It may not be what you want. So, how much control do you have? So, let's talk about some of those systems. First and foremost, your financial systems have to be tight. You have to know where you are, where your expenses, the things where your money is going. And if you don't, tighten that up first, because everything else that you do, how are you going to measure the success? How do you know that you're actually doing what you're supposed to do if you don't know that financially you've got the systems in place to control the spend, to control the what you drive from a revenue standpoint? So that's the first one. The second processes, what I would say would be um, going after the market. So a sales process, basically your marketing, your how you're branding yourself. The sales process has to be where you can qualify quickly. You then have the ability to say, based on what this opportunity is, am I willing to put X amount of dollars to create that opportunity? That means it has to be worth the squeeze, right? It has to be worth the profit to be able to do it. Or maybe you're going after a strategy, it's a loss leader strategy where I'm going to spend it up front, I'm going to invest. I know I'm not going to make any money on this, but there's a tail out there. There's another outcome that's going to come after this that I know is going to be bigger. So I'm going to invest now to get the bigger one. And that's all about qualifying quickly, then solidifying and contracting. Is it the right, what I call the commercial situation? Is there consideration between both you and the seller, you and the buyer, however your business works? I'm going to use a phrase that some of us might know. If it don't fit, you must have quit. Quickly get rid of it if it doesn't fit. My dad used to always say, freeze the design to meet the deadline. So how much time do you have to be able to execute on your business cycle? When you're taking from learning and understanding what this client wants to getting it to where you've got a contract and you're getting money or whatever you use, how much time do you have and do you have the systems in place to do it? And if you don't, you got to figure out those processes that you can start to reduce the amount of time, the cycle time, to get to your faster outcomes. And then probably the last one would be the system of your people process and evaluating talent as it's coming in, evaluating talent as it's there, and then as they're leaving, being very conscious on exit interviews, because as people are leaving, they can give you insights on things that the blind spots that you may not know, that they may not be willing to say while they're there being employed, but they're more than willing to say when they're on their way out. And they may be amenable where, you know what, you need to go and you need to grow and do this because I'm not big enough for you. Or it could be, we're too big for you right now and you're going to need to get some skills. I'll be glad to revisit and come back. It's how you manage the people process that's going to allow you to see if they feel like there's going to be retention or not, or if they feel loyal to you or not, if they're going to follow you where you need to go. So those are the areas I think I would focus on.
I want to go back to this because that people, cash and people were the two resounding themes for scaling. And we mentioned about cutting the people earlier when from a systematic culture standpoint, it just is not working. What are some things that businesses need to consider on the front end when they're looking at that and we're talking about more of a small business that may not have a whole HR department equipped with the test to ensure that from a personality standpoint, they're going to fit in. What are there anything that small business owners may be able to consider?
Yes, I always say have a criteria for decision making, and it's just a simple list, and it could be a list of 5 things that you feel like are going to be most important for this person to have, and you get agreement. Whoever is helping you make the decision, or if you're making it on your own, then it could be that they have a certain amount of experience in a certain area, or they have a certain amount of credibility, or that you're evaluating, are they willing to just roll their sleeves up and get the work done? Any of those kind of things, have that criteria and don't waver from that. There may be times when, I just got to hire somebody. I just got to get somebody in here, blah, blah. But you know what? It may cost you more in time and money if you get the wrong person in. It may be better to go slower, but get the right person. It's tough because you're trying to build your business, you're trying to scale, and you want to have the right people. And so I don't have the best answer on that one. That is an intuition part of the business. It's not, but definitely have that criteria.
Let's stay on the intuition. Now, this may not be something that you stated, but what about social media? How does that play into decision making?
Oh, I use it all the time. I use it in my day-to-day. I go out and I look at where people are with it, because social media is so prevalent now. It's very difficult for somebody not to have footprints across different platforms. That says a lot. That tells you a lot. A lot of times when I meet like clients, I will go out and I'll try to find them on Facebook and see like, oh, so they like playing golf, or they like also, or they're very into being was it philanthropic and
Yes.
whatever it is. I use all those avenues to get what I call the 360 view as much as you can on that person. And then see who they know and who they're interacting with and what are they saying. And if somebody looking crazy on social media, it's a pass.
It's a hard pass. I can't close the show without showing you this. Jay said that he's definitely going to reach out to you.
Oh,
He was
fantastic.
waiting on this webinar. He wanted to hear all the questions. We also had Natalie who said she was looking forward to today. And then we had one other comment. Thank you for the broadcast info. Howard, let's close the show with your thoughts, wisdom, and call to action to all of our viewers, all of our small business owners who are watching today.
I will say, every one of you, you are special, unique, and have your corner of the world that you need to go after. The universe out here is so vast. There's abundance for you to take on. Figure out what you're best at and figure out what your core capabilities are and secure those first for scaling. Then look at the periphery and see what can I add on to that. But until you have that firm core foundation that you know that you can go after it and kill it, there may be, you may take longer than necessary to achieve the goals you have. And I would say, keep the faith. You can do it. We need you to do it. We need you in the Black community to do it. And I'm standing by you and cheering y'all on.
Thank you so much, Howard, for joining us and providing all of these jewels to assisting Black businesses to scale. And thank you, business owners out there, for joining us for this webinar. This is going to conclude FPL's Be Powerful webinar series and educational programming. Please follow the Florida Association of Black Chambers of Commerce's Facebook page to stay up to date. Thank you once again, everyone, and we'll see you next year for more education. It doesn't stop here. You also can go to our YouTube page so that you can look at all of the older webinars that we have done. That is youtube.com/Hip Rockstar. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a great holiday.
Thank you.